Hi, this is Milen with Soul Connection Hoof Rehab. Today I'm going to give Scout a maintenance trim. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. We've been working on building the soft tissue in the back. So we have something much better than we had. The moisture right now has got some of my frog integrity here, but it's gonna come back up. So this guy is a very good example of thin sole at the front of the foot. You can kind of see where sole is growing in funny ways around the perimeter of the sole here. It's also trying to protect the bone because that's where the bone will be coming down. So when you see these little edges like that, you know you have not enough sole depth here. And you can see how flat it is right around here. When it's flat like this, you don't have enough sole depth. Doesn't matter how it feels when you press on it. Some people will press on it to try to feel density. Really, when it's flat, it's too thin. When it's thick enough, it starts bowling out when it gets to a certain thickness. So if we measure it, my halfway mark here on my hoof pick is 3/4 of an inch, which is what we want in the back. And this one is 1/2 inch, which is what we want at the apex of the frog, which is right at the front of the frog. So looking at the back here. So now some of this measurement is measuring wall height. We have to trim it because it needs to be trimmed. So I'm taking this into account that I will be lower than that when I measure it after the trim. But just gives us an idea. So we're probably just about correct back here. And at the apex here, we appear correct. But if I take this wall down, we're down to probably more something like this. So we're a little thin. So that's very important to check for this first. It gives you an idea of what you can trim out and what you shouldn't. And this little tip of the sole that's doing this here, trying to protect the bone, trying to lift the bone up higher off the ground, it's very important not to touch this. Very important to leave this alone. So you're going to create your rolls slightly past this, but you don't want to touch any of this because this is actually more correct than this flat plane here. So if I take this all out, now I put him on the really, really thin sole. So this actually keeps him sound or keeps him from hurting or bruising the bone, corium. So these bars are folding slightly out. And the reason for this is because this sole here is too thin. We can see it. It's flat. It's flat kind of here, here, and here. So there's nothing holding the bars straight. When you have enough sole depth here, it holds the bars up. But if it's too thin, then the bars are falling on the side. So really, you don't want to be over trimming that so that you actually dig in deeper than where the sole is, because the reason why the bars are doing this in the first place is because you don't have enough sole here. So knowing this, I'm going to be very careful with how much I take these bars. You do want frog pressure. So if the bars are too high, you'll often not allow this frog to actually get stimulation. But if I take this down too far and I cause sensitivity because he's too thin sole back here, then he's not going to land here. So we're not getting any frog pressure if that's the case. So what I like to do is just take the edge of it out so that there's no flap for mud to get underneath. And I like to kind of even both sides out. Sometimes it feels right to just help it out slightly, but I'm gonna be careful. And you know what, if in a couple of weeks I feel like this actually needs to go down, I can just fix that. I'd rather keep this horse sound than just taking something out because I think it needs to. I'd rather not risk it because yeah, it's very thin. So this is probably as far as what I would do for this. Just kind of make sure there's no flap. Now my heels are quite high. In the frog, it really isn't much to do here. Some exfoliating stuff here, grainy. In the central sulcus, which is right in the middle of the frog, needs to be open. It's pretty open. Out here, we can open this up a little bit because there's a little bit of a, there. There's a little bit of a lip. I don't want extra moisture to be trapped underneath there. Boy. Yeah, so my heels are really high, higher than the base of my frog. So I will have to take this down. I won't be taking as short as, or as the same height exactly at the frog, because if I do that, I will be digging into live sole. And for this guy, knowing that he doesn't have a whole lot of sole here, I don't care about the grainy stuff back here. Like, I'm not going to clean all this out. Actually, what's left to exfoliate is giving him more protection. So I'm actually going to leave it there and let it shed on its own because I have thin sole. If I had adequate sole, I could clean it out. If I had excess sole, I would. That's why measuring your sole depth is so important for doing something like this. So now if I start my Mustang roll, do it with my nippers. I like to hold it at 45 degree. Now I'm going to be very careful that I don't start my Mustang roll into that sole right here. I want to keep that little extra sole height here. So I'm going to go like this all the way around. This horse has wide feet, so he tends to have quarter flares. I've been maintaining them pretty well, so it's not a bad flare, but I'm mindful of that when I trim his quarters. I'm maybe a little more aggressive than I would on a horse that doesn't have quarter flares to make sure that we're not increasing quarter flares. Here, I lower my heels, give them somewhere further back to land on. Some stuff here, I'll clean it out. Make sure there's no bacteria that got in here. But I know this horse pretty well, and we don't usually have that issue. Just some moisture. We've had lots of moisture, like abnormal moisture here, so it makes sense that we get a little bit of that stuff in the white line. Being very careful here because I don't want to get rid of all this height, but I'm just checking this white line. A little bit of marks here and there, but I'm not going to dig in there to get rid of it. Next trim, it'll most likely all be gone. I make my Mustang roll a little nicer. I'm very careful. I hold my rasp away from that sole plate. I don't want to be rasping it out. I'm just holding it so that I get a nice Mustang roll, but yeah, not taking any height in my sole. Checking. This is all even. So I'll give my horse, I back up my heels now that he can actually land further back without taking the heel all the way down to the frog. I'm going to match my outside of the wall. I like to put my rasp in the center of the frog and look both sides and see if it looks even. It gives you a good idea. Now if I check my sole depth again, my sole depth will be a bit more accurate now because I have the wall down. If we look at back here, probably adequate back here. Out here we're definitely a little under, well, quite a bit under our line. But this horse is very sound. I guarantee you rasp this whole edge down doing this, and you automatically will cause soreness in this horse until he grows this all back and then feels better again. Good way to tell if we have quarter flares is if you split this frog 3 parts, so kind of like so, probably about the length of my hoof pick-ish. Put that in front of my hoof pick, in front of my apex. That's probably where the breakover should be ideally. Kind of in here. So I don't want to leave too much pass there. And now you take this same distance and you put it on each side of the frog. I'll do it just past the bar, actually. It gives you a better, because the structures are a bit different on width-wise and length-wise. But I've had really good success looking at it this way. So you take this length and you put it out here. So obviously it's a lot wider than long, this guy. But sometimes that's the way the coffin bone is, right? So every horse is different. So when you trim the same horse for a while or look at the same hoof, you get to know the particular horse. When the sole bowls out nicely everywhere, you know you have you follow the shape of the coffin bone of this horse. When you have concavity down here, and when you get at the tip of the sole, it gets flat again, it's usually a sign that actually you need a bit more. You need more building some sole up. So it's really that simple. If the sole's flat, you don't have enough sole depth. So you have no good reason to be trimming the sole. Even if it looks uneven somewhere, if you respect that, you'll keep the horse sound. Or more comfortable, I should say. There. If you love Scout, please subscribe. I love you, Scout.